You don't need interference. All right, guys. So we are studying the book of Shmuel, the second book of Shmuel. We're in chapter 5, verse 18. We're in a very interesting part of history. David HaMelech just became a king to all of us. And he just set his capital to be Jerusalem. And he figured out, our rights and got us there and established the city of David, which we can visit today, the ruins of city of David. And instantaneously, it seems that some neighbors didn't like it. Of course, what else is new, right? So the Philistines came and parked in the valley of Refaiim. So let's just understand a little bit of geography here. The valley of Refaiim is a hop, skip, and a jump from the city of David. You can probably see one from it's like one over the hill. And David was for 7.5 years. He was a king only in Hebron, only for the tribe of Yehuda, and therefore he was able to secure the borders of the tribe of Yehuda. What he wasn't able to do now yet is to secure the entire land of Israel, because he just took over the leadership of the entire land. He established, first of all, his headquarters, moved it from Hebron to Jerusalem, but he was not able to secure the borders. The Philistines, who were basically stationed in 5 cities, five main cities, and then a whole bunch of small ones, in the southwest, where today is Gaza, Kiryat Gat, Ashkelon, those cities, were able to get, without even sneaking, without even fighting, just walking over all the way from there to the gates of the city. Emek Refaiim, the valley of Refaiim, is at the gates of the city of Yerushalayim. So there was no protection. There was nothing stopping them, and they felt that they better catch them when they're small. When there are no borders, when there is no border police, when there is no need to fight all the way to the capital city, they can just take it right over and get there. So that's what they did. Vainachu, that's the word that we have here. Vainachu means they were scattered all around. They just did whatever they wanted, and they got there. Now, David is so David right away sees it, and we have to notice something very, very interesting about David and very, very fundamental. David had a different view of the world than us normal, mortals. He had a very special view of the world, and in his view, everything is managed, every single event is managed by God, and every single event is in divine providence, and everything that happens is a sign, and everything that happens you have to take note of. There are no haphazard things, there are no things that just occurred, and therefore he makes a simple calculation that it's very hard for us nowadays to make. It was in fact almost impossible for most of our leaders to make throughout history. But he's saying, I just moved everybody to Yerushalayim in preparation of building the first Bet HaMikdash, right, the first temple. and suddenly we have enemies at the gates here. Something is wrong. We did something wrong. God is trying to tell us something that it's a sign. I mean, it can't be that everything is hunky-dory, everything is great. We did everything that we were supposed to do without any problem. And here we have a whole army of enemies at the gates of the city. Nobody even, bothers them. Nobody even told them to nothing. They just got there. So David is doing what David always does, and that is asking directions from God of what to do. And he's asking meticulous, exact direction of what to do, and he follows it to the dot. We will see soon how his predecessors, Shaul, didn't follow it exactly. He took some liberties, which cost him the throne, which cost him the title, the kingship. So Vayishal David B'Hashem. So David is inquiring, is asking God. We're talking about asking with the breastplates, right? The common way of communicating with God, that the leader can communicate with God, is the breastplate, the choshen, the ephod and choshen. So, and he asked him, Ha'ele el plishtim. First of all, he asked him two questions. Again, he asked him two questions. Usually you ask the breastplates one question at a time. But he was startled. He was fearful. He was stunned. He felt that time is of the essence, and he can't wait. So he asked, so should I send the troops against the Philistines? Should I go there? Number one, and number two, to get permission to fight is one thing, but what's the outcome? Hatitnem biyadi. Will the outcome be favorable? Am I going to be the winner? Am I going to be victorious? Vayomer Hashem el David. So God answered him both of the questions. Aleki naton eten et haplishtim biyadecha. He says, yes, you should go. You should fight, and I'm going to make sure that you're victorious, and you're going to deliver the Philistines into your hands. So what does David do? Vayavo David b'val pratzim. So David came to a place very close by over there. It's a place that at the time didn't have name, but David renamed it right after this event. Vayakem sham David, and he smited them, he smote them, he defeated the Philistines over there. Baal pratzim means the plains of breaches. And he says, why am I calling this place the plain of breaches? Vayomer paratz Hashem et oivai lefanai, that God breached the enemies in front of me. Why? What's the word breach? Keperetz mayim. Imagine a dam, and a dam is holding the water, and now there is a breach in the dam, and the water are going all over the place. There is no rule, no way of managing it, as we saw during a hurricane not a few years ago. When the dam is breached, it goes all over. That's what happened with the Philistines. He defeated them by giving them over the head, and they ran and they spread like water, breaching a dam. That's why he renamed that place, and that's the name that people call that place, Baal Pratzim. Vayazvu sham. Now we have some sort of a parentheses, by the way, 6 words which are going to consume a whole bunch of time here. Vayazvu sham et atzabeim vayisem David v'anashav. So they left their idols. Atzabeim is not a respectful name, calling idols in a very derogatory manner. It's called atzabeim, means like their nerves, Vayisem David v'anashav, and David and his men carried them off. Now, why am I saying that we have a whole lot to talk about? Is because that all of the stories that all of the events that we are learning and we're discussing these days, are all repeated in the book of Chronicles. Chronicles 1, chapters 13, 14, 15. It's in great detail. And the book of Chronicles was written 500 years later by Ezra. Ezra is the gentleman that took us out of Babel at the end of the Babylonian exile and brought us back to the land of Israel, and to set back shop over there and to build the second temple. So he writes there the Chronicles, all of the whatever happened, and he does a couple of things. Number one, he writes the events in the order that they really occurred. Chronicles, that's the name. So here, and what's happening here, those are events that are happening in real time. The prophet Natan wrote it. This is a student of Shmuel. So Shmuel wrote the first book of Shmuel, right, almost to the end of it, till he died. And then from that point till the end of the second book of Shmuel, that wrote Mr. Natan and someone else. And they're writing it more of a freestyle to they summarizing things. So certain things are written in more abbreviated form, and some events are bunched together to sort of complete the picture, not because they happened at that in that order. So what happened? So why am I telling you all of that? Because this point of the fact that after the war, the Philistines left in the field, in the battlefield, they left their idols, and David carried them away, is mentioned in the book of Chronicles as well. But over there is a little bit of a different extra word. Over there it says that it was burned. Okay? That he took them and he burned them. And he told the people to burn them. So, whenever you have, there are a lot of different, differences, multiple differences in the story, but this difference is sort of picked up by the rabbis in Tractate Avodah Zarah. Tractate Avodah Zarah is a tractate that deals with idols and what to do and how. In the third chapter of Tractate Avodah Zarah, it mentions what you need to do if one finds an idol. What do you do with it? So the basic rule is that you're not allowed to maintain it. You're not allowed to sustain it. You need to burn it. You can't even bury it. It needs to be eradicated. It needs to change its form. The atoms, the molecules are supposed to fall apart, and it cannot remain the way it is. So if it's made out of wood, you burn it. If it's not, there is in Israel, there is a very good place to put in all kinds of items that needs to be destroyed, and that's the Dead Sea. The concentration of salt, or different salts in there, basically destroys almost everything that you put in there. So that's being destroyed. So if you find an idol, you throw it to the Dead Sea, or you burn it. Now, what was the idols that we were dealing with here? When the Philistines were fighting, they took with them. The Philistines had a special knowledge on how to process metal. They were one of the first ones that were able to create weapons and tools from iron, basically. So they also created idols from metal, and that is what they carried. That's what they put on their weapons. It was an insert in some cases. Was part of the weapon was idols. So when they were defeated, they threw the weapons, they threw everything that they carried, that they had, including the idols that were heavy because they were made out of metal. Aluminum was not popular those days, so it was heavy. So they threw it away, and ran away. Now, the Gemara in Tractate Avodah Zarah is asking, so what do you do if you have an idol made out of metal? You can put it in the fire today till tomorrow, it's just going to become stronger. What do you do with it? So, one option is to take it to Yam HaMelech, to the Dead Sea, because eventually it will eat up the iron, the metal, it will be eaten up. Another option is to grind it. Okay, is to eradicate it by grinding it. Okay, now the Gemara over there that is asking and saying, how come you telling me that I need to grind an idol that's made out of metal? Look what happened here. What happened here? That the Philistines left the idols in the field, and David carried them. Refaiim, they carried them back to the city, right? They didn't. It doesn't say that they burned them. In Chronicles, it says that they burned them. Here, that they carried them. How come? Which way it was? I mean, we understand when they took the idols in order to mock them, in order to make fun of them. But it's now. So the Gemara is asking a question: which way it was? Which way was it? So there is one answer. Let's leave that. That's not the Gemara. So the Gemara itself is answering a very interesting. It comes with a very interesting answer. The Gemara is introducing another individual. His name is Ittai Hagiti. Ittai Hagiti was a Philistinian person. Philistine, right? Plishti. He apparently knew David from the time that David had to run away from the land of Israel to the Philistines, to Achish. If you recall, when Shaul was chasing him, he had to run out of the country and he hid over there. And apparently, he was a hero. He was a general, a leader, a good soldier, Ittai Hagiti, and he knew David from then. What happened was during this war that Ittai Hagiti saw that the Philistines are losing. And he knew the value of David. I guess he followed him on Twitter or something. He knew exactly who he was. And he decided to flip. He decided to join the forces of David. And this is the war that he joined the forces of David. We meet him later several times, like 2 or 3 times in the Tanakh. We meet Ittai Hagiti as a person that is part of David's apparatus, parts of David's army, and he is still a Giti. He didn't convert. He remained who he was, Plishti. Now the Gemara is introducing the whole idea of Goy Shel Shabbat, so to speak. How so? There is a law that idols are not allowed, we're not allowed to enjoy at all anything that comes from idol. We cannot sell them, we cannot use them, we cannot look at them, we have to destroy them. Except if the idols are being ois idols, if the idols are becoming nullified idols. What does it mean, nullified idols? That an idol worshiper who yesterday believed in those idols now decided to basically break that they no longer worship that idol, and they destroy it in such a way that it's no longer fitting for worship. It doesn't have to burn them. It just can break their nose, whatever, just make them not usable for that purpose. Then they become just regular material that we can use as well. So the Gemara is saying that in the beginning we burned them. We found those idols and we started to burn them. But later on, this Mr. Ittai Hagiti, who was an idol worshiper, came, joined forces with the army of David, and he says, why are you burning them? Well, because they're idols. No, they're not idols. And he sort of nullified them for us and made it possible for us to just carry them and to just keep them. So that's how we ended up with being able to save or to rescue those items. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to use them. We see years later, 20, 30 years later, when there was a war against the Ammonites, again, the same thing happened. They had an idol, and they put on the idol a very heavy crown of gold, and then they took that, when they destroyed the idol, they took that crown, and David was able to use it. And the question is, how come David is using it? It wasn't used by idols, idol worship. It should be destroyed. The same answer, the same gentleman, Ittai Hagitti, came to the rescue and nullified that. So he made it, nullified the idol shaft in there, and it's no more idol. It's no longer an idol, and therefore he was able to carry it. Now, so that's what Ittai Hagitti contributed, and that's what this simple 6 words is teaching us. Now, while we're learning on those 6 words, I just wanted to mention something else that is Ittai Hagitti helped contributed to basically to halacha in a very interesting way, and that has to do with the lineage. What does it mean, lineage? It's very important for a Jewish person to know where they came from. They need to know if they came from converts. They need to know if they're Cohen, Levi, Israel. They need to know if they're allowed to marry in a certain way or not marry some other way. It's very important. The lineage in our religion happens to be important. So there is a rule that how far you need in order for a Kohen. If someone is marrying a woman which is coming from the Kohanim, needs to track her down several generations back, basically 3 generations back, to check the eight mothers. So she has 1 mother, and her mother has 2, and so up to 8. You need to check 4 generations back. Now, and with the exception, if they find that throughout the lineage there is a family that is already working in the temple, in the Bet HaMikdash, you don't need to check any further. You don't need, if it's 1 generation and they work, you trust it. If they are sitting in the court, in the Sanhedrin, you don't need to trace so much, 4 generations back, and several others. And then there is an opinion over there that says, if there are soldiers in the army of David, you also don't need, because the soldiers in the army of David were all people that were checked and vetted. And we don't use mercenaries. We never hired other people to fight our wars. Okay, so all the people that are serving in the army are are legitimate. You're not afraid that there's not Jews or something. So you don't need to check. So the Gemara is asking, but that's not so, because we have this Ittai Hagitti, who was a soldier in the army and remained and kept his belief, which is he was not idol worshiper, because that's how he was able to nullify them, but he was not converted to Judaism. So this Ittai Hagitti is basically refuting this whole statement, and the Gemara is retracting it and saying, well, if he was in the army, you do need to check, because the army had soldiers here and there, not many, 1 or 2 that were not considered, they were not Jews. So very interesting, whatever. That's just sort of an aside. Now,
So he never converted.
he never converted. He never converted, and he was able to live because there are, laws that makes it possible. As long as they act according to the laws, and they accept the 7 mitzvot bnei Noach, they're allowed to stay. They're allowed to be. Anyway, at this point, in the Chronicle, in the book of Chronicles, there is another event which we will see later. But in here, in real time, we are putting together two pieces, two events that happen one after the other. In short, it was actually about 3 months apart. So after the first defeat that David, basically was victorious over the Philistines. Based on what happened in Chronicles, you know that it was about 3 months, or maybe less, but around, not days. So they didn't give up. They regrouped, and they came back again to the same place, to the same, the gates of the city, and to the valley of Refaiim, and spread again. And they decided they're not going to give in because of one small defeat. They were very tenacious. So now David is really worried, totally worried. Why? Because the first one can be interpreted as, I sent the Philistines not because you did something wrong, because I wanted you to defeat them. I wanted you to give them what they deserve, and to basically finish the Philistine question. After this second war, the next battle, we don't hear from the Philistines for about 100 years. So that's what David thought, that it's time to. The Philistines were bugging us for a few tens of years, for a few decades now, from the time of Eli, before Saul, before Shmuel was a judge, before Saul was a king. They were bugging us from the time of Shimshon, right? So for several decades they were hurting. They were a thorn in our sides, and it's time to get rid of them. So he thought, if it's not something that we did wrong, because we won the war, so it's because God wanted us to win it against them. But now that it happens again, now he's really worried. What happened? That means that we did something wrong. So he asks again, Vayishal David ba'Hashem vayomer lo taleh. So now God gives him a different answer. Before he says, yes, you should go and you'll be victorious. Now he says, no, you should not go. Hasev al achreim, you should turn your back to them and go around. Meaning, you're standing at a stalemate, face to face with them. You should turn around, make yourself look like you're retreating, and then go around the hill. It's very easy in Yerushalayim. If you visited, you know that there are a lot of hills. So you just go around the other hill and nobody sees you. They didn't have drones in those days, so he went around. Ubat lahem mimul b'chaim. And you should come from the back of them, from the trees. Okay, trees of certain tree. What? Mulberries. Yeah, some certain trees. Now, what's the situation here? Why is this happening? So that goes back to the after the first battle of Shaul. Shaul rose to power when the Ammonites were attacking us, and he came to the rescue and rescued the people of Yavesh Gilad. The Ammonites were telling them that we're going to poke your eyes, your right eye, right? So Saul came to the rescue and defeated the Ammonites. And then everybody came, and all of the people were very happy that Shaul saved us. And they made a party in the Gilgal, and Shmuel at the time, the prophet, came and said, let's now inaugurate Shaul, right? And he told them, and you should wait for me until I come in order to start the party. don't bring any korbanot, any sacrifices to Hashem. This is a message from God. You should wait for me. So Saul goes to the Gilgal with all the people, and they're celebrating. They're waiting patiently. 1 day, 2 day, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. They couldn't wait. On the 7th day, they couldn't wait. And he gave in to the pressure. Saul gave in to the pressure and started sacrificing the thank you offering to God. As soon as he does that, Shmuel shows up and says, why did you start? I told you not to. And that's because you don't have patience. And because you didn't listen to the instructions verbatim from God, your kids are not, you're going to be the last king. Your offspring are not going to not going to be kings. There was an opportunity here to make you king forever, and just like we're saying, David Melech Israel Chai v'Kayam, that David is our king, and the lineage of David is kings till the end of time. For us, it should have been to begin with Saul, but he botched it by not waiting, by just not listening exactly to because what does it matter if you do sacrifice or don't sacrifice? You do it the day before or the day after. To me, it doesn't matter, but to God apparently it did matter. So if Shaul was not able to listen to the instructions exactly verbatim, the cake didn't rise. That's it. It's the end of it. Later on, he lost his own. He could have been 40 years king. He ended up being 2.5 years king because he messed up again and again and again. But the first mess caused him to lose the kingdom for generations. The eternal kingdom of Saul was lost by not listening to God. What's happening here is exactly the same test and exactly at the same moment. After the first win, now that David won several wars before, but he didn't win them as the king of all the Jews. Now he just won the first battle with the Philistines as the king of all the Jews. Now it's time to see if he's going to follow exactly the directions verbatim. If he's going to follow the directions verbatim, then he's going to be awarded David Melech Israel for generations. He's going to be king forever. If not, God will have, I guess, plan B. So this is what's happening here. He was making it so tempting. What do you mean? Why shouldn't I? I just had, a few days ago we had the same battle, the same place, the same people. We can do exactly the same the same thing, But no, he asked again. He got a different answer, and he follows it to the dot. And then Hashem tells him, and this is how you're going to do it. When you go back, you retreat, you go around, around the hill, you go to the back of the Philistines. When you hear the sounds of steps, when you hear the sounds of steps, sounds of steps that coming from the top of the trees. That's weird. Usually the steps are coming from the bottom of the trees. That's where people are walking, right? But you are going to hear something that sounds, the head of the trees are going to move in such a way that you will sound like steps. So when you hear this kind of steps, then you're going to breach, then you're going to attack. Because at that moment it will be the right moment when God is going to lead you. And he's going to smite, he's going to attack, he's going to hurt, to harm the camp of the Philistines, the forces of the Philistines, and you'll be victorious. Now, just like the situation with Shaul, David had to withstand the crowd, because it wasn't David versus Goliath, one against one. It was an army against another army. And he had generals, and he had soldiers. And the soldier was telling him, come on, let's go, let's attack. Come on. What are you doing? What are you waiting? What are you waiting for? And he was able to hold, because that's what a king needs to do. He cannot be led by his advisors. He needs to have a backbone. He needs to know what he wants to accomplish. And he is the one that calls the shots. Vayaz, which we'll see, it's very funny that we're saying that, because soon enough, when he does need to to hear advice, he does do it properly. It's not that he's a loner. He's not a loner. Shaul was a loner. He did everything alone. He didn't listen to anybody. At least not consciously listen to anybody. But David, he knows when he needs to listen and when not. So now he asked God what to do in the breastplates, and he was told to go around and to sit there and wait, and that's exactly what he's doing. ויעש דוד כן כאשר ציווהו השם, he does, he follows it to the dot, ויך את הפלישתים מגבע עד בואכה גזר. So then he doesn't just keep the battle local and let them just run away, because we've been in that movie before, and soon enough, they'll come again. So he is opting to chase them all the way to Gezer. Gezer is when you go down from Yerushalayim towards Tel Aviv and highway number 1, and you go all the way down to Latrun, to the entrance to the Shar Hagai over there, to the beginning of the mountains. Then you have a little kibbutz called Gezer. So they didn't have a kibbutz over there, but they did have a town called Gezer at the time. And this is, he chased them basically all the way over there. And he handed them a very, fantastic defeat. And you don't hear from the Philistines for 100 years now. They're off they didn't leave. Yes. Question. Yes. You're muted, Ivan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did David conquer the 5 Philistine cities eventually?
So the Philistine cities remained a thorn in our side for years to come, but they were not terrorizing us anymore. So that's why it says Gezer. Gezer is basically the beginning of their land.
One of the cities, wasn't it?
What?
Wasn't Gezer one of the 5 cities?
No. It's Kiryat Gat, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Aza, and one more, not Gezer. Gat and one more, but not Gezer. Gezer was on our side, and it was just to tell you that basically we drove them to their land and we didn't hear from them anymore. Okay. So now at this point, David is starting to create security around town, and because until now the Philistines were able to walk, now he put them all the way down to Gezer, and he will not let them, come back. But at the same time, he also is fortifying the spiritual essence of the Jewish people, knowing that we're not living by the sword, and we're not successful because we have better weapons, and we're not successful because we're smarter or because we're whatever. We're successful because God is protecting us. So one of the things that he needed to do is to improve our spiritual standing, so we'll continue to prevail. So what he's doing is, ויוסף David et kol bachur b'Yisrael 30,000. So David assembled all of the picked men of Israel, right? 30,000 strong. It's a very weird sentence. What does it mean? What does it say? So first of all, what is the mean bachur? Bachur means nowadays in Hebrew means a guy, a guy, of a younger guy, unmarried guy, right? There are 3 ways of calling unmarried people. One of them is na'ar, okay, and another one is elem, and another one is bachur, okay. So just a little bit of Hebrew to spice it up. Na'ar comes from the word to shake off. He's a younger kid who shakes off responsibility. It's called a na'ar, I'll do, I won't do, it's, no, I'm not settled where I am, I'm too young, that's called na'ar. Elem means that I'm not, it's coming from the word elem, hidden. It's an older boy but he's not sure yet. He's not shaking off responsibility, but you don't know where he is. And Bachur is coming from selected. Either selected or being selected or needing to select. Bachur typically is someone who is in the parsha, as they say, is ready to select his mate. He's ready to select his path in life. Or someone who was selected already. But in any event, is someone who's more settled with himself. So what happens here is David is selecting the special guys. What do you mean? What does it mean, the special guys? At Kol Bachur, with all of the Bachur, he selected 30 people. There were in those days 30 throughout the land of Israel. There were 30,000 communities. 30,000 communities. And each community would send a representative to the army. And with each one of these representatives, there were 3 elders that came, a Beis Din that came together to guide. You know, you don't nowadays you send a chaperone, right? So you send one chaperone on every 10 kids. So they send 3 chaperones for every one of the kids, every one of the Bachurim. The bottom line is that David fortified he selected the guys, he accepted the elders. He created a structure amongst the Jewish people, a spiritual structure. And with that, he felt that now it's the time to bring back the ark to Yerushalayim. Now let's talk a little bit about that, and we're not gonna get there all the way, but let's talk a little bit about the ark. So the history of the ark is as follows. The ark was in the tabernacle, right? And the tabernacle was first in the desert, then in the Gilgal for 14 years, then in Shiloh for 369 years. And then it was stolen by the Philistines that were just defeated, right? It was stolen by the Philistines, and they, on the account of having the ark as hostage for 7 months, they got, disseminated. They had a lot of death and a lot of pandemic and all kinds of issues that they have over there because of the ark. So they let the ark go back. They basically loaded it on an Uber. In those days, it was a wagon with a bunch of cows, and they told them, go. They'll pay you, collect over there. Just go. And they actually loaded with gifts because, to our God, to gifts with the gold. To say that they're repenting that they took it, and they let it go, and the cows took the ark back to our side, and it was, just to make a long story short, it was traveling. It was traveling in several locations from that point on. It was in one place, and then they didn't treat him right, so it was they also suffered. And then he went to another place, and then it was brought closer. It was brought closer to Yerushalayim, to where it needs to be, but again, not totally settled in its final location. Now David feels that it's time to build Beit HaMikdash. It's time to put together, where we bring the korbanot, and where we have the altar, and where we have the ark. All of that needs to come and to be in Yerushalayim, and be ready to serve all of the Jews, and basically establish Yerushalayim as the city that we know it is, our capital. So that's where we stand, and I guess the rabbi is here, so we'll stop, but we will finish. We'll